Welcome back. I am joined by the one and only Nick Demao at sniper_1154. My name is Quinten Krzysko. We are building the board, and we are here today to talk about the always difficult linebacker position. Nick, how are you doing this evening?
Good. I'm hanging in there. Like you said, this is a fun position to scout. I feel like as Bears fans, it's in our blood to look for good linebackers. So it was good going through the tape and trying to find the next potential great Bears linebacker if they're in this draft class somewhere.
And it's interesting. I have a friend of mine, Danny Meehan, on Twitter. He he said something the other day that was like, and he's a big. If anyone out there knows or follows Danny, he's a big linebacker guy. Like he's a linebacker, running back guy,
Gotcha.
and he said he believes linebacker play is at an all-time low in the NFL. I was like,
Yeah.
it was right after I was talking to you about it, and you were saying something about Jalen Walker. It's like, well, yeah, Georgia, they play these guys like they never learn a position because they
Yeah.
play all like, and
Yeah.
that feels like it's what's happening in the NFL.
Yeah.
These linebackers are never really learning the position very well, and it seems, and they keep getting smaller and smaller, and they
Yeah.
can't play like a meathead like me. I want them to stack and shed. Right.
Right.
I want to see it. And there's like one guy in this class who does it.
Yeah. It's definitely gone are the days of like that sweet. What was the guy? Was it Brian Cox on the Bears that like in the 90s that had the big neck roll? And then I
Yeah.
remember he was just like a menace. And it's like, it seems like those days are gone because, like you said, everything's shifting towards being more athletic. Uh, yeah, I mean, the traditional downhill linebackers are almost a forgotten breed nowadays. It's those thumpers that can come in the box and just take on blockers, plug up running lanes. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they still have a place, but it's like, well, can he drop into coverage now? And it's like,
You need to
oh,
hit that requisite level of being able to play coverage, right?
exactly.
It's like a lot like there's a guy from Nebraska, I think, named Lander Barton,
Yes.
who I
Yeah.
watched, and it was like he's fun. He's big, he's decently fast, but it's like that dude can't play coverage for his life.
Yeah.
Like, but he can stack and shed, you
Yeah.
know?
I hope he's not watching. No.
Yeah. Yeah. For real though.
No,
If so, I
but
loved your tape, but
there's I mean, it's gonna be a common theme going through these linebackers. Like, there's not, it's a lot of them I feel like can do the bare bones coverage, but you'll see, like you said, because now there's so much emphasis on positional versatility and not learning the linebacking position as much as, like with Jalen Walker, they were moving him all over the defensive line. You see some of the, I guess there's fewer polished prospects, I think, nowadays, uh, which, makes it interesting to go through the tape because there are a couple guys that I'm really high on that I think just are plug and play starters. But yeah, I mean, it is one of those things where you see some guys and it's like they've got glue in their hips. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. You might just be special teams for a few years, like just running straight downhill and carve out your niche that way.
yeah. Now, before we get too much into prospects, we want to start off with a bit more Bears centric conversation here of what do the Bears have on their roster at linebacker right now? So we pulled up the salary cap stuff here, and Nick, did you want to go ahead and take that?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty thin right now. I mean, really, it's the three guys I'm pretty sure everyone knows. It's Tremaine Edmunds, TJ Edwards, and Sanborn. And then there's one guy, Carl Jones Jr., who is a 24-year-old outside linebacker, and I have never heard of him before. And I like to think I have a decent grasp on the guys, but I mean, he could just be someone they picked up off the street at the end of the year just to hold him over. But I mean, after that, Noah Sewell is another guy who we kind of talked about. I don't know if he has a home at linebacker. He doesn't really have a home at all on the roster because he doesn't play. But I know there were whispers when he was first drafted if he's a defensive end or what his position might be. So it'll definitely be. It's a position. I don't know if I'd say they're a little top heavy, I think, with Edmunds and the cap that they've put into the Edmunds and Edwards. But it's definitely a position that I would think that they're going to look to improve over the offseason, either through the draft or free agency.
Now, one thing I look at here when I see this, like I you don't gain much from moving on from Edmonds, right? Maybe in a
Right.
trade, like if you were to trade him pre June 1, you could save 12.5 million cap. If there's someone willing to take that on and someone interested in taking it on, there might be.
Right.
Maybe you can work something out there. But if not, I something I'm really curious about. I'm not sure if Tremaine Edmunds has ever had a coach, at least not on the NFL level,
Mm-hmm.
who is insistent that he is getting downhill against the run.
Right.
Because right, like with in Buffalo and in Chicago, both those coaches were like, "You're deep middle, right? You
Yeah.
are a deep
Yeah.
middle coverage player first. You're
Use your
everything
length.
else second." And I
Yeah.
think with Dennis Allen, he's going to need to be a downhill player first
Right.
and a coverage player second. And I'm interested to see how that works out because
Yeah.
I mean, Dennis Allen is not one to mince words either. So
Right.
like
Right.
it'll be interesting to see, how he takes that harder coaching at the same time as being asked to be more physical there.
Yeah, because I'll be curious too. I wonder if he was one of the players that, not necessarily Ben Johnson, but I know when the Bears hired Ben Johnson, one of the prerequisites was like you cannot be married to any player on the roster. And I mean, everyone knows Tremaine Edmunds was a Matt Eberflus. That was a guy he identified as, this is who I want to run the middle of my defense. So I would think if they needed to move on from him, they would. It'll be really fascinating because, like you said, his makeup as a player isn't exactly what Dennis Allen looks for in a middle linebacker. I mean, if you look at Demario
Well,
Davis and just like, and he hasn't. I guess
just
I shouldn't say.
traits. Just
Yeah,
traits. He's
yeah,
he's the
the
player
trait.
that everyone wants at middle
Yeah, I
linebacker,
should. I
right?
should. I should rephrase that. Yeah, he's never been asked to do it, like you said, with Dennis Allen
Well,
and
yeah,
kind
he's
of
never done
attacking down. So
it.
it'll be interesting, yeah, because um, I mean, maybe Dennis Allen will unlock him. I'm sure there's. I I feel like he has the capability of being more violent in the run game and more of a pass rushing threat. But like you said, they kind of just got comfortable letting him sit in his bubble and use his long arms to swat passes.
Well, and that's where I'm skeptical of it because I'm generally a believer that violence and aggression isn't something you can coach into someone.
Yeah,
And going back to his college tape, that's never been something that's always been his knock is
right.
that he's not that downhill aggressor.
Hmm.
And so I'm interested to see because I think it's a really good case study of that question will
Yeah,
be this year and how he plays through being asked to be a different player than he's historically been.
yeah,
But besides Edmonds, because I do think I think he's probably here this year. I think
yeah,
you're gonna have a hard time moving that contract, and it's not really worth the 4 million in cap save. Like for the 4 million in cap savings, can you really find a player who's going to fit better than Tremaine Edmonds? Like
right.
I'm just not sure that that's there. But with TJ Edwards, it gets a little more interesting to me
Hmm.
with how much that he downgraded once Andrew Billings went out.
Yeah,
Is that something where you say you look at his contract and you're saying we only got 1.5 million of dead cap if we move on from him and we save 5.5 million? Is that something that you think you can replicate behind Andrew Billings being back, or is it something that you think is worth keeping?
yeah. I know he's a fan favorite, but I also think he was playing the Lance Briggs role in. I mean, it wasn't a Tampa 2, but it was a cover 2 defense where the action is getting funneled to his direction, and he's
Mm-hmm.
making the tackles, and he's cleaning up basically. I shouldn't say cleaning up. He's the spearhead of stopping the opponent's action because the way the defense was trying to funnel it towards that weak side linebacker.
Yeah, so it generally Billings was playing in front of
Yeah,
him, which gives him more space to eat because Billings can eat up more
yeah.
gaps.
And And with Dennis Allen's defense, I don't know if he has. I don't think that, like, I need to do more research on Dennis Allen's defense. I know it's a very downhill, aggressive defense, but when I look back at like those Saints teams, we talked about Alex Anzalone was a Saint, Zach Bond, even though I don't think he really played, but those are more athletic linebackers that I
Yeah,
feel
even
like
like Pete Werner.
are using their speed, are not exactly. They're more, and I don't want to call Edwards a reactive player. I think he is a proactive player, but I think they were more um, attacking the offense versus waiting for the action to funnel towards them. So I'll be curious what happens with TJ Edwards. I think if he got released, it'll be one of those things where fans are going to be like, well, he had a great year. But if you actually dig into the numbers, he did not have a.
Mm-mm.
It
He
was
was
probably his,
playing well before Billings went out, and then
yeah,
it just went like it. They tried to cover the run problems
yeah,
with him funneling up more, which just made him much more susceptible in
right,
coverage, and like it didn't go well.
yeah. It was tough. So I mean, it'll depend. I think if they released him, it would probably be after the draft. Is it? Yeah, it'll probably be after the draft. I was gonna say I don't know if it's a difference if it's post June 1 or before then for the cap
There
savings, but
might be a difference in cap savings, but I mean, I don't think you have much benefit to post
yeah. So
June 1sting him because you're already saving most of the money anyways.
yeah,
Why spread it over 2 years?
right. Yeah, because I'm of the mentality of like if the Bears went into the next season with the linebackers they have now, which is Sanborn, Edmunds, and Edwards, and mystery man Carl Jones Jr. I wouldn't be upset with Edwards and Edmonds starting. I think they're a fine linebacking duo. I think there's bigger holes to fill on the defense, but it is one of those questions. If Ian Cunningham gets hired by the Jaguars and the Bears get an extra third round pick at the end of the draft, I mean, that's kind of like that third round is a sweet spot for some of these linebackers that I think could come in and replicate, especially what Edwards did last year. I still think, like Edmonds is going to stick around, but there's guys that I think you could even look at, and we'll talk about like a Danny Stutzman or someone that you could look at that has a similar frame to Edward or Edmonds, that could maybe come and sit a year behind him and then take over, who's more of a
Mhm.
downhill attacking linebacker. But maybe you learn a year behind someone with a similar frame like Edmonds and coverage. So it'll be interesting. I think it's one of those positions people aren't like pinning as something the Bears are going to do much in, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a shakeup, especially seeing how much Demario Davis meant to that Saints defense for a
Everything.
decade. Yeah, like it's a very important position in this defense. So I could see Dennis Allen, on day 2 really wanting to get one of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think so too, and that brings us to our next question of how much draft capital can we expect the Bears to put into the linebacker position this year?
Uh so I feel like um if they want to get a guy that I think could start right away, they're going to have to probably spend a, at least a third round pick. And they've got 2 seconds, a first, and like I said, they might get another third if Ian Cunningham goes away, or not goes away, but takes the Jacksonville Jaguars GM job. Um, I'd honestly be I would imagine if they do draft a linebacker, it'll just be one. I can't see them double dipping at linebacker. But then again, I couldn't see them double dipping when Eberflus got hired and they took a nickel corner and a safety back to back.
Yeah,
So I mean, there's weirder things have happened, but I think with the direction they're going, I could see there's a couple of guys that I kind of have third round grades on that if they get to that fringe day 2, day 3, where maybe they're dropping and the Bears do have that extra third round pick, I could see them pulling the trigger on some of these guys because I do think there's talent. It's a little unrefined talent, but yeah, I think they've got to try to throw some darts to find somebody to, put in Dennis Allen's defense that can, make it an attacking linebacker.
yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I think that if they get that Ian Cunningham comp pick, that's to be right around pick 100,
Yeah.
101. I think that if they're taking a linebacker, that's where it makes the most
Yeah.
sense, there or later. I don't think we see a pick in the top 100 for a linebacker
I don't,
though.
yeah.
Like I think it's that 101 and on range with that comp pick in fourth round and after. That's where it makes the most sense. But the last question that we have, which we've already touched on a little, is what are the Bears looking for in a linebacker for Dennis Allen's defense?
So from what I've researched, the little Saints film that I've watched, a little bit of, I mean, we know Dennis Allen wants to attack the offense. We've had, Bears fans have kind of been not exposed, but we've gotten comfortable watching offenses that sort of react to or defenses rather, that react to what the offense is doing. And I think Dennis Allen is a tone, like he wants the defense to inflict its will on the offense. He wants
Right.
the offense to adjust to the defense instead of vice versa. So, I think, he's going to look for linebackers that can blitz well, athletic linebackers. He wants guys, I think, that can, get thin at the line of scrimmage, get through, be run stoppers, blitz the quarterback. I don't know how much emphasis he puts on coverage for. I mean, I don't know if I don't know if he's looking for a guy like Tremaine Edmunds that's almost solely going to be a coverage linebacker. I mean, I know he wants, of course, they want a guy that's not going to be a liability in coverage, but I don't think it's one of the traits that they're emphasizing as much as athleticism. Can he get to the quarterback? Can he stop the run? Can he be violent at the line of scrimmage and inflict his will on opposing linemen versus kind of being more passive or reactive. So that's the gist I get. And I don't know who the Bears had. I mean, the closest I think would probably be Jack Sanborn. I thought when he was playing, he seems to be running around with his head on fire, but I don't know if that's the play style they're looking for. I think they want someone a little more athletic than Jack Sanborn, but that sort of mentality.
Yeah, I think of it as like versatility, IQ, and athleticism. That's
Yeah.
like, and those are three like boilerplate things. But like,
Right.
I mean, I look at they drafted Zach Bond because Zach Bond could double as a defensive end
Mhm.
linebacker, and that created mystery within the defense of what he was doing each play and how he could
Right.
take stuff away from people. And then I have to think because of the size that he likes on D line, I think that leads to the smarts and versatility. He
Mhm.
wants the linebackers to be the motor. I think the
Yeah.
linebackers and the corners are the motor of his defense, is the way I see it.
Right.
Where you need the D line to be good enough for that, but like I think he generally wants to keep the linebackers clean to play free
Yeah.
and be able to be uninhibited, whether that's going forwards or backwards. And
Mhm.
it's funny you say like I've said as well that's attacking defense, right? I think
Mhm.
I want to clarify that because the blitz rates aren't that much higher than what we saw under Eberflus.
Right.
But it's much more like you said, downhill, much more.
Yeah.
We're bringing the fight to you. You're not bringing it to us.
Yeah. And I I never got the impression Eberflus, and this is probably watering it down and distilling it way simpler than it was, but I never thought his blitzes were. I never thought he was very creative when it came to rushing the quarterback. I didn't think that the defensive line had a real creative plan when it came to rushing the quarterback, and I thought, I mean, I feel like we've seen the same Kyler Gordon blitz off the edge probably, once a game, and it's effective. But I think Dennis Allen's going to be a little more creative getting guys to the quarterback. Um, and not just kind of relying on bringing one extra guy and hoping that they find that pass rush lane where they're going to go in untouched. So uh, I'm looking forward to it. I think Dennis Allen's a great defensive coordinator. I mean, the metrics kind of back up that as a play caller, he's the best. I mean, before he became a head coach, when he was simply a defensive coordinator under Sean Payton, he was the best defensive play caller by some some metric that measured it, but maybe EPA, I can't remember. But it'll just be interesting what sort of personnel changes he's looking for. And I do think of the current roster, linebacker is going to be one of those positions where it's like, okay, this has got a lot of investment in it money wise, but they might need to shuffle it a little bit to get it more towards what he's used to with his linebacking core.